This is Michael McKeon, aka Morris Fletcher, aka Chuck McGill. You know who I am. But it's time for Inside the Gilliverse with Eric Broadbent.
You're watching Inside the Gilliverse, talking all things Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. Brought to you by the Royal Baubles Collection at bobbleheads.com. For all your favorite characters from the Gilliverse, shop the Royal Baubles Collection at bobbleheads.com. Also brought to you by Rode Microphones, the official microphone supplier of Inside the Gilliverse. See their entire lineup today at rode.com. Now please welcome your host, Eric Broadbent.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Season 2, Episode 11 of Inside the Gilliverse, where we talk all things Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and El Camino. My name is Eric Broadbent. It comes with great pleasure to welcome tonight's guest. You know her as Francesca Liddy from both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, actress Tina Parker. Tina, how are you? Nice to have you here.
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm kind of like nervous, strangely, but I'm excited to be here.
Hey, me too. Every week, it's same thing every week. I'm nervous too, and I think that's a good thing. You know, you've got lots of theater experience and on-camera experience. I think when you lose your nerves a little bit, I think that's something to worry about, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. When you're not nervous, you're probably creating a big pile of crap, would be my guess.
I think so. I think so. But yeah, it's great to have you here, and we've been trying to put this together for a little bit, and thank you for adding me as a friend on Facebook as well, too. Nice to communicate with you there. And yeah, we're going to kick off the weekend talking about something that we both love. We all love so much here when we'll be talking with a lot of fans from around the world, and that's Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And it's just so nice of the fact that you've had the opportunity of being in both. That's got to be quite the thrill for you.
Man, it's like the gig of a lifetime. Like, when people, I've had a lot of like little parts and different things all over, but it's still, I think, hands down my favorite thing I've ever done. Just because, dude, it's like the work's so good, like I'm not talking about myself, but just like I'm a huge fan of the show. So the fact that I'm even on it, like even sometimes it's like I have one line, I'm like, woohoo, like I have one line, I love it because I just love the show so much. So I'm super thrilled that I'm part of it.
That's good. And I mean, your character, I was looking it up. I think I was on one of the Breaking Bad wikis or whatever out there. I think it was 18 episodes you've done, but both Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
So some serious time for sure.
For sure. I've spent a lot of time in New Mexico.
And I hear it's a lovely place to be too, right?
It is actually. It is, like I think isn't it called the Land of Enchantment? So
yes.
I think it lives up to that name for sure. It's definitely a special place.
It is. Wonderful things for sure. Well, we're going to jump over to some questions coming in right now from the fans here, and I'm going to jump back to some of mine. We have a super chat from Lisa Love, and she says, when you didn't hug Saul back when you were both shredding up the office, I could literally feel your disdain for him. Do you feel your character was just too through with him at that moment?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, they've been through a lot, and he's asked a lot of her, and this was just finally enough. We're at the end of it, you know what I mean? And so there's no hugs and probably 0 Fs to be given at that time. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, we're out, make sure we get some money in my account, son, so for sure no hugs on that one.
And we'll talk later too throughout the program too about the transformation of Francesca from this this big time transformation. From Bob Rich, Tina, you've been in many fine productions in film and TV. What are the essential ingredients for a truly great show? Is it passion, a fresh, unique perspective, a great story, or characters we relate to?
I personally think it starts with the story. It starts with the script, and like as you guys know, as fans of this universe, they've got a hell of a team putting this together, and really the attention to detail is just insane. Because I just remember my first episode, when I got the job. Like I remember, like I think I had like one scene which got cut, and then like one line from a distance. But like just going in the costume zone alone and seeing like, here's the color palette that everybody selected, and this is the transition, and nobody can be in this color, and this is the color story we're telling. And then I mean, it just the love of the craft of it the attention to detail. Like I loved listening to the podcast, which I'm sure everybody on here has listened to
Mm-hmm.
when it was airing. Just knowing like, you know, certain details that came out in later episodes, like, oh, that's been on the writer's board since season 3. And this has been here since this, and this is what we wanted. And you're like, oh yeah. And when you go back and rewatch, which we all have watched it how many times now during the pandemic, it's fun to kind of see all those like, oh, that detail here. Oh, this triggers this. And oh, this is why this happens in Saul many years later in production. So for me, it starts with the story. I mean, I've been on a number of shows and that's, to me, always what's made the difference is that, plus having a, you know, from the top down, having a team of creatives that are really lovely humans first and foremost, and like everybody's invested in what you're creating. And so it kind of pushes everybody to do the best they can. Because that's the thing I remember most about both Saul and Breaking Bad, all my time on there, is that everybody was excited about working, you know, like, sure, there would be long days and sure, people would get testy and tired and all of that. But I'm not saying no, everybody was like, it was like sun and roses all the time, but it was the thing, you know, like even down to like even PAs or people that, you know, they were just excited to see where the story was going to go. I remember when we shot the scene that they were talking about where we're shredding papers in that episode of the last episode of Saul that I was in, where the flash forward, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the crew had never been in the Breaking Bad Saul office.
Oh, right? Cool.
And so everybody was just so like, like it was so like electric because everybody was just like, you know, like, and it was exactly the same. And yeah, you know, Bob and I were like, it's the same, but everybody's like, it's fantastic or whatever. So it's just a fun place to create, and you know, and it enables you as an actor or as creators to go further, and because people take pride in their work and are excited about what's happening. So those to me are the projects that, you know, that I've loved working on, even ones in addition to Saul and Breaking Bad. Like, yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful story too. And I can imagine some of the people that were able to take part in that set. It's almost like being a Star Trek fan and being in the Enterprise deck. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that, totally.
Yeah. Well, I'm just watching like it's such a, all the walls that come out and like the columns that are so crappy and can knock around. And, it's just a fun, bizarre, and seeing old pictures that they took of, Bob, like, it's just funny. It's just funny to see it to me. So
we'll talk about that, some of that scene, especially as well too. Some of the audio questions that are coming up there. I know there's a question in particular from that. I think it's from Kathy. But something I'm going to do, I wrote this note down because I always forget to ask this question. And this was something you and I were talking about, Tom Schnauz, off the air. And Tom and Tom's mom, if you're watching, hello. But Tom started this. So there is an official answer to this. So we like to look at the Gilliverse, which encompasses all the 3 shows, right? It's the universe that encompasses all of Vince's work and Peter's work. There is a particular smell in the Gilliverse, all right? And it's a 2-thing answer. And I always like to try, and Tom and I used to like to try and get our guests ideas on what it might smell like in the Gilliverse. So I'll give you an example. One of my thoughts when this was proposed, I liked, Jimmy wanted to get that desk made of cocoa wood. So I thought it might smell like cocoa wood and something. So I'm going to propose a question to you. If we took off on our ship to the Gilliverse, what do you think it might smell like in the Gilliverse?
Oh my God. It's funny because that first thing I reflect on is just that waiting room that we have in front of the office. So I think it just smells like old cigarettes and regret. But
that's good.
But that's just like, that's total Breaking Bad. That for some reason that waiting room just popped into my mind, and it was just like they would fill it with the weirdest and funkiest looking people, and I was like, woo! There's a lot of sad times up in here every day.
Yeah,
in a great way. But yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking old cigarettes, like it smells like an old ashtray.
Hey, if that's your answer, that's a good one. Those are good. Is that what you're going to go with? Old cigarettes and regret?
I guess so.
Okay.
Well, I'll keep thinking about it. I might revise when I come to the end, but that's
no problem. Well, I'll give you the answer now. I'll tell you what it is, because that's a good one. I'm going to put that up high on the scale of, we've had like, what was the last one? Gunsmoke and, I forget the answer. My beautiful Sandra Lee will know the answer to that one. I forget what was said last week. But the answer is bacon and fear. Bacon and fear. Vince even got bacon. He didn't know what the other one was. He says Vince Gilligan thought it would smell like bacon and something, but bacon and fear is the answer. So
bacon makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And everybody's sweating it. So that makes that scent of fear totally makes sense to me too.
That's right. And as you know, we talked about Tom Schnauz. Tom Schnauz puts bacon on anything. So it's got to be bacon, right? I think
and it features pretty prominently in the Breaking Bad universe. I haven't seen so much bacon in the Saul universe, but you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Bacon will be coming. Maybe that's the whole. It will just be all bacon all the time. Season 6.
You never know. We'll find out for sure. Here is a question coming in from Josh Gordon. Josh says, "Did the writers give you any inside info about the hitting on comment Saul gives you on the phone?"
No.
Nothing.
No, I just read them, and it's like, wow, okay, and they're like, you just deal with it in the room. Yeah, no, I know that. I remember in Breaking Bad. I think I was one of the few characters that could wear low-cut shirts.
Okay.
For fun. And I was also one of the only characters allowed to wear Marie's purple at one point.
Oh, wow.
And she was walking through the set and she was like, "You're wearing my color." And I was like, "Oh, great," or whatever. But yeah, I remember with the low-cut shirts, like that was, I always just joked with the costumer at the time during Breaking Bad. I was like, I think she's insisted on an allowance, like, and she gets to pick her own outfits. So I get a clothing allowance to wear these, you know. And at that point, I think I had like a low-cut green snakeskin, top or whatever.
Yeah,
no, they don't give me any of the. I mean, it's always a surprise every time. And of course, it becomes a running joke with my friends. They'll, call me HT and all sorts of good stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it keeps you on your toes, right? You have no idea what's coming, do you?
Yeah, and it's Bob, so he'll have a lot of fun with him too. So
I bet. And
he's so not that guy, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're a polar opposite of what your character is playing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's great. Here's a question from Zoko Santos, and it's a similar question I was going to ask, so we'd rather ask from Zoko. Says, do you have any memorable moments on set in Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, and what was it like working with Aaron Paul and Bob Odenkirk?
Gosh, there's a lot. I will say on set with everybody, like that's the thing, is like when I say the thing about from the top down, everybody is so nice. Like that was the thing that impressed me, because like literally I'm coming in the middle of this is pre-COVID, but you'd fly in, do your scene in a day, and then fly back out, or whatever. Like I didn't have like long arcs of scenes until really I got to Saul, where I had a little more time. But everybody from the top down knows who you are, knows your name, like ask about the theater. Like that was the thing that was so impressive to me, is like, I remember, I forget which season it was, might've been the last season of Breaking Bad. I remember coming on to set and Brian was like, you could tell he was super tired and he was all aged up, like for the future, wearing his jacket. And I was like, oh my God, like his makeup was amazing. And he was like, how's your theater doing? And you're like, what? Like you remember that I even run a theater? Like, and same thing with like Vince and Peter and like all those guys, they know your name. They know like, oh, hey, when we were last talking last time you were here, how's that going? And so friendly, just like how you would talk to your best friends. So they just nice people. They create just that vibe on set. I was trying to think of any memorable moments. I think, for one thing I remember distinctly is when we were shooting that big scene in season 4 of Breaking Bad, where me and Brian have the big confrontation, which I was so excited about. And a little fun fact, I'm a huge Dallas Mavericks fan. Go Mavs. And of course, the night before my big scene, of all, like I've had like all these one-line little bits here and there, but of course I have this big scene with Brian. I'm very excited about it. They win the championship. The one and only time they won the championship is the day before I'm called at like 5:30 a.m.
Oh, no.
So I'm like walking in my hotel, like only have one beer, like in my bedroom, like watching it and like getting excited. And I was like, go to sleep.
Can't.
So it's just hilarious. But I just remember that scene being so fun with him, because he would always get really close to me. And he is, as with everybody on the show, like they're all actors. So they give as good as you get. So like if it's cameras on you, they're coming at you full tilt. And so they expect the return, so as a theater actor, that's super fun, because that's not always the case in film, like it's a different jam. And I just remember us having so much fun that day. And when he decided to crawl through that window and got kind of stuck on a take. And I think that's the take they kept. And we laugh, like everybody's like, it's so Walt, you get stuck in the blinds or whatever. We're like, So yeah, we had a lot of fun. Like he would keep getting close, like get close talking to me and kind of mess with me. And it was just a blast. Those guys are super nice. And same thing, like I've had a lot of fun with Bob. He's, you know, he'll kind of throw up some energy and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what the scene is. I love it. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any other memorable times, but that season 4, that final scene. I just remember that take and us just like the DP laughing, like everybody was just rolling because we were just having a lot of fun and they didn't keep a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Going back and forth with each other for sure.
I love the fact though to know that that's the scene that they kept was where Walt got stuck, and that would be totally him, right? You know, coming off of this.
He was trying to like really be smooth, and he was like got stuck, and then he got mad because he got stuck, and I was like, yeah, they kept it. I love it or whatever. The best.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see Vince for sure. You know, that he's such an attention to detail, and he would know that would be so much more, you know, believable, right? Instead of just a perfect entrance, no problem, and unscathed.
Yeah, and that's the deal, right? That's why I think the shows are so appealing to everybody because it's like it's perfect in its imperfectness of the characters. Like nobody's ultra clean. Nobody's like everything works in my face. You know, like it's like everybody's mixed up. You know, so it's just like life. You can align with all sorts of different people, even the crazy people, because they're a lot of fun to go with.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you for answering the questions to that. And we have a couple super chat questions coming in. This one here is from Lisa Love. It's more of a comment/question. She says, wanted to let you know how glad I was to see Francesca be a part of the prequel. We get to see more of her story. I have a feeling there's still a lot more between her, Saul, and Kim that we haven't seen. And I agree with that. And I know there's a lot of things, you know, a lot of, cast and crew are assigned to NDAs and a lot of things they can't discuss. You can't discuss. Do you think we may see Francesca in season 6, or is it something you don't know yet?
I'm not sure yet. I hope so. I would think so.
I think so too.
You know, maybe if everybody out in the Gilliverse will burn some sage and do their dances in the woods or whatever. Like, I sure hope I mean, like, I'll go back if they're like, can you just hold the door for Bob to come in? Like, or like, will you brush Kim's ponytail out? Like, that's great. I'll do it. I will do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was so fun. Like, I remember when I got the call when the prequel, you know, I got my call to come to the prequel, it was just so fun to see a different Francesca.
Yeah.
And to have to be so like, and the outfits like reflected that. Like, that was the thing that the costume was like, we're putting you in pinks and hearts. And like, we love this shirt with the birds on it or whatever. And it's like, okay. So it was a lot of it's really fascinating, like if you're super fans, to go back and look at color stories and how characters devolve or evolve color wise.
Yes.
I'll tell you right now, like, it is very meticulously thought about.
Yeah, for everybody. I mean, you look at your Walter White.
And that includes the art direction, the way it's shot, like, and you know, like sometimes they'll switch up staff just to get like, okay, this person has this vibe, we're going to switch it up to get this vibe in the season. But man, they have some of the best DPs in the biz. So
agreed.
Right. Oh my God.
Oh, I know.
Marshall, like, I just can't, every time I watch Saul, I'm like, how did they do this shot? You know, like, so I'll get on, I'm like, how did they do this? Oh my God, Marshall, so great.
I've had the pleasure and I mean, when I say the pleasure, an extreme pleasure of having both Marshall and Michael Slovis on the show. And,
oh my God, Michael's the best.
Oh, I know, right? Well, I had Marshall on when Tom was with me as co-host, and he's coming back, and Michael on my own. And it was so hard. Like, I mean, I was trying to write notes all night long because I'm a photographer myself, an amateur photographer, I would say. But still, I was trying to take so many mental notes, and just hearing these behind the scenes things, how they make things that we think is so believable and so real. You know, like desert scenes with like little light bright type lights and heat canisters to make them twinkle and all that kind of stuff. Just so cool, you know, and the cameras in the weirdest places. And
oh yeah, just the way that they come up with all the mouse traps and like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we got this? Like, you know, there's certain signature shots that are Breaking Bad and, you know, now kind of have come into the Saul universe. But, you know, it's like, oh, and the camera looks down this hole, or this is coming out, you know, like this is how we can incorporate this shot now. And you're like, oh my God. It's fascinating.
Did you know? Did you know the one little fun fact? Vince shared this with us when he was on the show a few weeks back. You know, the scene where, you know, the teddy bear falls from the plane, right? The plane explodes. And when they're shooting that, they use like a Canon DSLR on a. They decided to finally use a weather balloon, and they were going to use.
Oh, yeah, I heard this story.
Yeah, right. And the camera, it just took off and it went like 200 miles away, whatever. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, and it was like this really expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, probably a few grand easily just for that camera. Gone.
And it just flew off. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember hearing that story. I love it.
Absolutely hilarious. I was glad he shared that with us. We have a super chat question from Race Grooves. Says, hi, Tina. Anna Gunn got a lot of public hate for not supporting Walter. While you're not Saul's wife, did you get any hate for not supporting Saul in the end?
No, I haven't. Not yet. No,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting with I'm not as visible as Anna.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good and bad, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I haven't got any shade.
That's good.
I think I'm just maybe just a little on the sassy side. Like, you know, it's kind of like me and Huel and like those weird sidekicks that he's got. Like, we're just kind of like, so I think, you know, when we come in, it's at certain specific moments. But no, I haven't gotten any shade. And it's interesting because I don't get recognized usually, which is great, except for when I'm in a bar, which has been a long time since I've been, you know, because of the corruption.
COVID and stuff, yeah.
But oh my God, it's always like there'll be one person in the bar and you're like, is this person drunk? But they just keep kind of staring at you and they're like, do I know you? And you're like, well, I'm in place. Do you come to the theater? And they're like, no, you know. And I was like, do you watch television? And they're like, you know, and so that's you. You're like, okay, great. So it's just funny. I mostly get recognized in bars.
There you go. Well, I think people are a little too smart to try and throw shade at Francesca because, you know, Anna Gunn, you know, and it was horrible what happened to her, you know, on social media and things like that too. And I know she's kind of taken a backseat to a lot of press because of it. Incredible actress. And I mean, she really nailed that part. Yeah. But people are, I think, maybe a little afraid, especially when they see the Francesca of Breaking Bad. You know, I think people are a little intimidated by her too. You know what I mean?
She doesn't play. I mean, there's not, I mean, you know, like I'm just, what I'm curious, you know, if stuff develops with her in 6, it's like just their like the depth of what she knows and what's happened in that office is pretty like,
yeah,
you know, she's got a pretty big file and she will not hesitate to use it. So, she'll shut in and she'll at the same time, like I think she is fiercely loyal to him, in a way that's maybe different than with the Walter relationship with Anna, but yeah, so I mean, I don't know, she rode them to the end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's obviously with that flash forward, which is what I'm curious about. I'm like, is anything gonna happen with that flash forward where it's like she gives me a card and I'm like, whose card is this? I mean, when I saw the card, it was blank, just for the record. But I was like, what's this nugget gonna be? You know, is it Kim? Is it who? Because that's what I was like, because the reaction that they wanted, I was like, I wonder if it's Kim.
Yeah.
That he's asking me to call, you know?
That's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. Because, I mean, I don't know what you guys think out there, but it's like, I don't think she dies.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you guys. I'm hopeful. Maybe just because I love Ray so much.
Yeah.
Ray's a kick-ass lady. And she just smokes it and should have gotten all the awards this season, in my opinion. I don't know why she wasn't nominated as much as come on.
I don't get it.
Early, I don't get it. But man, that performance in season 5 was fucking great.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know. I'm hopeful that she lives, even though their relationship, I'm sure, is like me and her. I'm interested to see what that's going to be about. But.
Well, speaking of Ray and yourself, you mentioned Betsy Brandt earlier and Anna Gunn. I mean, there's so many powerful women, you know, involved in the Gilliverse, and not just on camera as well too. The writing staff. I mean, and the casting directors. I mean, everything is just so. I mean, hats off to the talented women behind the scenes and in front of the camera as well too. It's a powerhouse team for sure. Yeah, and I think that shows, you know, because they're not. I think Vince likes powerful like ladies who aren't afraid to say what they want, which I really love. You know, like his ladies are fully like have a nice round shape to that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and they're all different looking, which is really cool. Like I remember that was a cool. If people listen to the podcast, like I remember when I was cast, like I had never heard the story of how I was cast. I know my personal experience, but like, you know, when I read it, I thought, okay, this is going to be a blonde, skinny, big boobed lady, you know, because it was all about, he makes those sexual innuendos and whatever. And I was like, not me, but I'm getting called in Texas. I live in Texas, everyone. And so they were doing some remote casting. And so I just remember like, oh, well,
whatever, I'm just going to dress how I feel like I look good. Right. I'm not going to dress like a fucking secretary, which is really funny to make that kind of weird, bold choice. So I dressed in this rockabilly dress that has apples on it and this black little thing, shrug. And I was like, I feel like I look good. I'm going to do this. And I was like feeling pretty sassy. I walk in, literally everybody in there's blonde and has like secretary outfits on. And everybody was kind of like, I think you came to the wrong audition.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so I remember doing the audition, felt great about it. You know, the casting lady who I knew, Tony, was like, oh, it's great or whatever. And then I never heard anything, which I was like, it is what it is. I felt good about it. So. And then literally I got a call and was like, can you be on a plane in 3 hours? And yeah. And it's like, you booked it. And I was like, what? And when you listen to the podcast, I heard Vince's side of it, which was like, I guess they were looking at a bunch of tapes and he was not seeing what he wanted. And he wanted somebody who was not blonde, big boot, like traditional,
yeah,
or whatever. Something kind of untraditional looking for the character. And the casting hero was like, well, I have this tape and I really like her a lot. Like I like Tina a lot, and I don't think she's right, but you want to watch it. And he was like, that's exactly what I want.
Perfect.
So I was like, then I was gassed. And then I totally I remember getting to the hotel and seeing the list and it was like Bob Odenkirk. Like I lost my mind because I'm such a huge Mr. Show fan.
Yeah.
You know, like huge, like so many, I've watched that show so much. So I was like, kind of like, oh my God, I'm like totally like geeked out. I'm not, I've been on a few shows with a few stars and only occasionally cause I'm like, oh, keep it on the, keep it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that I actually did say like, hey, I'm going to geek out for a minute. I just really love Mr. Show and I really love you. I'm sorry. And he was like, no, it's okay. Or whatever. I just felt like such a I was like, I'm just going to get this out of the way and then we'll forget it ever happened.
Well, there's so many shows that we all love. I'm sure you've done this before. You've looked at some shows and thought, oh, I wonder how my favorite actor or actress would have done this role. So you take Francesca, and everyone's showing up in the traditional secretary garb, looking like they I can't picture another person other than you doing that now, right? You've done it so well and it fits so well. And Vince being Vince, I think everything worked the way it should have.
Yeah, no, thank God. Thank God it worked the way it did.
Yeah.
And thank God I could just throw the weirdest clothes into a weird tote bag and jump on a plane, it was the universe firing at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I was like beyond like, so excited. But literally like 3 hours, like I had to go home, leaving, like I was in an audition for like some mom commercial that I would never get.
Okay.
And throw my crap into a bag and be like, get on a plane and have no idea, I think my mom came and took my cats or something. Like it was just bizarre.
Isn't that something? Life-changing moment, isn't it?
I'm telling you, yeah. Sometimes the universe works in your favor, right?
Yes, I can relate to that.
Favor or whatever it is, the Mockingjay line.
Mm-hmm. I can personally relate to the universe working very, very well, especially right now. There is a super chat question coming in from Josh Gordon, and then I'm going to jump over and play some audio questions. I think we have one from Josh as well too. But this is a funny one. Did you ever steal anything from the Blockbuster set? So Kim's kind of going on a binge of movies, and a lot of us don't even know what Blockbuster is. Some of the younger folks out there, I certainly do. I remember those days very well. But did you bring any souvenirs home from any of that set or anything else?
I didn't. I've never, if I get to go back, maybe I need to get a little sticky fingers going on. I never really did ever take anything from the sets.
Mm-hmm.
But Blockbuster, I'll tell you, because that was like a staple for me as a kid, and like going to Blockbuster on Friday nights, like as a teen, and getting your movie. So I just remember walking around that set with Ray and being like, oh, I love this movie. Like we were like walking around and looking at the movies and both of us sharing like memories of like, remember in high school when you'd go and you'd get this and, this is before Netflix and chill. All right. Or whatever. It was a great time. So
yeah.
It was mostly just walking around and they had and per the universe, they had very specific movies that they wanted her to pick up.
Isn't that something, right? Yeah, exactly. To get in the wheelhouse of Kim Wexler, what she'd want to be watching. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what they wanted, like, what would they want to show at this one point? And what would the titles be? Because the same thing of like, anytime and I'm sure everybody knows this, but like, anytime there's a telephone number or a website on the show, it's usually live.
Yeah.
So like, there's a phone, like I remember when we were doing when I was first shooting the prequel, they're like, you need to record a voice message for this phone number. And I was like, okay. And so it was like happy Francesca, like, oh, great, you did this or whatever, you know, like, and it's because they're like our fans. They love stuff to be live. So
yeah, for sure.
Really cool.
There's a question here from Eamon Wise, one of our moderators. He says, how do you see Kim's story ending? So just it's just like a hypothesis or a theory here. How would you like to see her story end?
Well, maybe just because I'm partial to Ray, but I'm like, can she go into like witness protection or
get
banished somewhere? I don't want her to meet a grisly end for some reason. I feel like there's going to be some big schism that happens between the two of them, but something that puts her maybe puts her in danger. I don't know. I feel like she's somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I have to, it's been a while since I've watched Breaking Bad again. So I was like, there's not anything in there, but so I don't know. That's kind of where I lean though.
Yeah.
Maybe just I love Kim so much.
I know we all do, right? I saw some comments in the chat earlier, people saying if Kim dies, we riot and things of that nature, of course. And I shared the story with you off the air. Some people may not know this. Some of the viewers can see behind us. I've got the bobbleheads from our sponsors, Royal Baubles and bobbleheads.com. And the other room, I know you have 2 cats. We have 2 cats here. And our one cat, Wendy, she knocked over the Kim Wexler bobblehead and it fell to the ground and snapped her head off, broke her head clean off. And so I took a picture of it. And I tweeted it out, I tagged, Tom and some of the cast and crew, whatever. And I said something, and I think Ray as well, and said, attention writers, please do not let this be a premonition of what's going to happen to Kim Wexler. And you saw her head literally on the ground. And Ray tweeted back and she said, I need to speak to this Windy cat of yours. It was really funny. And then we glued her head back on and all is good. You can't tell from a distance. She looks good from here, but you look at her close and she's a Frankenwexler with stitches across the neck and everything of that nature. But let's just hope it's not that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't know why, I still, for some reason, my guess is like, is that card something with her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, I feel like something bad has happened with her, but it's like, why are you like, and for him to give me that person to contact, I'm like, so is he asking her, me to get her to represent me or to represent, like protect me or whatever, or protect the firm, protect him. I don't know. Like, that's kind of where that's my guess, but I have no.
No, I'm feeling that as well too, and as you know, being part of the Gilliverse, what the writing team is like. They don't just kill people off for fan service, and they don't, they certainly don't just do it for fan service. And when you expect something, usually when you got your sights set on something else, it's a 180. So who knows? Well, a lot of people think there's going to be a death, but hopefully it's just a mystery.
Yeah, I'm curious because I'm sure they've probably had some stuff on the board for a while that we,
Yeah,
it's kind of like. Spoiler alert, I know it's not a spoiler to anybody here, but like, it's like when in season 4 of Breaking Bad, when they blew up Fring with the bell, it's like that bell, using the bell for something was on the board since season 3.
Wow.
And so they're just like, whoop, pull it down. They're like, now is the time for the bell to be used. And you're like, oh, because I heard that in the podcast. And I was like, oh my God. Like, that's how detailed these dudes are.
Isn't that something?
I love it. Yeah, my God.
Yeah. They always all of them talk about painting themselves into a corner, the writers. And it's so nice because they get into those corners and like that bell could have been something like, we've showed this bell. Now what the heck are we going to do with it? Or the gun, episode 1, and then the finale. Right. So yeah, it's just crazy. So let's jump over in a second and let's play some of the audio questions. So the first one I'm going to play is from Karina. So here she comes. She's one of our moderators as well. And here is her audio question.
Hi, Tina. My name is Karina. Francesca's had so many memorable scenes and seems to have mastered the art of sarcasm, especially in that Better Call Saul season 4 scene where there is a crossover into the Breaking Bad timeline. Are you a sarcastic person in real life? You're very good at that particular look.
So, yeah, I think that's definitely in my sweet spot as far as just the kind of humor and stuff that I have in my personal life. Like I like dark comedy. I like, she's definitely in my she's definitely in my psyche.
Okay,
for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's good. That's good to know. And the second one I'm going to play is from Josh. I'm looking on the screen. Yes, this is from Josh Gordon again. So here's an audio question from Josh.
Hey, Tina. I think Francesca has the biggest transformation of all of the Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad characters. As an actor, how do you decide how much you're going to take the character in the opposite direction? And did the producers tell you her change when they originally asked you to come back? Thank you.
So yeah, talk about transformation.
Yeah, they didn't actually. What was awesome was I got the notice that they wanted me to come in and sent the scenes, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, just, it was all written in the text, and then talking to them on set, it was like, we really want, we want her to have, something happens to her to break her into who she turns into. And so playing with that was so fun, like, just to be so like positive, and like, it was such the opposite. Like, it was actually a joy to play, because it's also a little bit even different than me, because I kind of been like, it is what it is, like, whatever, I'll do whatever you want. So yeah, it was fun. I don't normally play that happy-go-lucky, like, oh, okay, I'll do, let's have some fun or whatever, like it. So it was all in the text, and they, gave me a little, direction on set, but then the scripts really just take you where you need to go, which is awesome. And it's to the letter. Like, there's very little like, hey, can I rewrite this line? Like that's not what happens on a Breaking Bad or Saul set. Like, unless there's just something that's like not working, but the writer's usually on set with you. And they're always to the letter. The script soups are great. So to make sure you learn you're saying your lines correctly. Because why fix it if it ain't broke, right?
Agreed.
So,
Agreed 100%. Before we jump over to the next two audio questions, there's a super chat from Ragava. Ragava says, "Hey Tina, love your performance. You've shared scenes with many characters in both Better Call Saul and the Breaking Bad universe. Whom would you love to share a scene with that you haven't had the chance to have one yet?" And that's the thing. There's so many of the characters that you would have never crossed paths with. Are there a few? I mean, Walter White. Yeah, I mean, with Bryan Cranston, you've had the opportunity. Bob Odenkirk. You've got Ray. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. Any that you would just love to have had a scene with that you didn't have the luxury?
I would, which I'll never have I don't think it will ever cross paths, but I would love to be with Gus. I don't know why. He's just a lovely person, and he's so good on the show that I don't know why we would ever cross paths. And same thing with Mike. Like, strangely enough, we've never been together. Other than like seeing each other behind the scenes. Like, I remember my first day coming back for the prequel, they were doing like looking at my hair and trying to figure out what we were doing, and they were shooting a close-up of Mike's hands, and he was like, Jonathan Banks, and he was like, hey, you can fill in for me or whatever. Like, he's and I've sat in a makeup trailer with him before, and he's so hilarious. So I would love to be, I would just love to be opposite that at some point, but I know it will probably never happen, but I think it would be fun.
Well, that's very cool. And as I told you off the air, we've got Giancarlo Esposito on the show next week. So I'm going to say, hey, guess what? We've got our last week's guest would love to have been in the scene with you. We would love to, so I'll share that.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Oh my God. Just because he's so good.
He's something else. He's really come a long way. And now, I mean, he's in so many things. I mean, The Mandalorian, Junior and I started watching, my son Eric Jr. started watching The Boys. We loved it all the way through. He comes in late in that show, but still fantastic. Just everything he seems to get just turns to gold. And I mean, obviously writing teams, of course, but still great actor.
Just a great actor. I mean, look, if you even just go back, even through his MDB, his path. Or
I know, right?
I didn't realize that you shared a cell with Eddie Murphy or whatever. In this,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of he's such a good character actor that he kind of disappears and you don't really recognize him in the early times. He's a lovely person, and just, I don't know. I've always just wanted, anytime you can get on the set with somebody who can really kill it acting wise, that's just, as an actor, that's just like, please, I just want to see what that's like, to see if I can, what kind of energy that is.
Yeah. He can be right in the forefront. He can also be a chameleon as well, too. Blend into as you say.
Absolutely,
yeah. Blend right in. Yeah. Here's two more audio questions. This one coming in is from Lori, so we'll take it away with Lori's question.
Hello, Great. Tina. This is Lori. I know that you've been active with the Kitchen Dog Theater for many years now. Can you tell us how you first got involved with them, and which has been most challenging, or your theater work or the TV and movie projects? Thanks very much.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm the co-artistic director of Kitchen Dog Theater in Dallas, Texas. We just turned 30 years old this year. Crazy. I know I don't look a day over 29, but but I didn't found the company, but whatever. But I've been working with them since 93. So most of my life has been spent with Kitchen Dog, and we do kind of edgier plays, world premiere plays. I act, direct, sometimes design with the company, and then I also produce stuff. So it's hard to say which one is more difficult. Like, I think the cool thing about being where I am right now in my life is that, like, I'm able to do both. And so, like, it kind of balances out. So when you're like, I'm so frustrated at the theater, it always seems to time out like, oh, I got a gig. And so now I can go away and not have to think about money, or like money as far as producing plays and how are we going to do this, produce this, or this space, or this play, am I getting rights to this play, whatever. And, the toilet is overflowing. Like, how am I going to, like, literally not a sexy job to be a theater nonprofit administrator. It's rewarding for sure. But it's hard work. So I have that kind of an interesting balance between the two. But sometimes film and TV work will give you an escape from, like, it'll give you a reprieve from one thing, and then you're like, oh, I can't wait to get back and do a play that's in order versus shooting out of sequence and trying to figure out what's going on with the characters or whatever. So there's things I love about both. For me, I would say, I still have a ways to grow and learn more in film, and film is, I'm still learning. I feel like I guess if you ever stop learning, then you probably need to quit. But I feel like I'm a little more experienced in the theater side. So, but I don't know. I think right now I would say producing theater is the hardest, just because at least SAG is getting everybody back to work and doing film. Right now the theater is still, even in Texas where it's wheels off, no mask, let's go crazy, which I hate. Don't like that so much, especially in a public facing business like theater. So it's been really the pandemic year has been particularly hard. We've had to pivot. I hate that word, but we've had to pivot so much. It's been a particularly exhausting year, as it's been for everybody. Like, I know that, I'm not alone in that. So right now I'd say film and TV is great, because at least, I can get away from, like, what are we going to do?
I know. Yeah.
How do we stay alive? How do we stay relevant? Do we do this? I don't know. But yeah, we do a lot of cool stuff. We just we did a play that we actually filmed. So my film experience actually came into, which we didn't do for a live audience. We tested out we followed all the SAG protocols and filmed like a play. So it looked like a play.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was set in outer space, and it's called Last Ship to Proxima Centauri. It was by Greg Lamb. It was a digital world premiere, and it was fun because it was all about, it flipped race relations on its head. So it was about, the Earth went in the toilet and the ship got lost, and they finally reached Proxima Centauri, and they get there, and instead of being welcome, instead there's a whole planet of people of color who are not happy to see them.
Oh.
Their plane is white. They're from Seattle, so most of their plane is the white people. So it kind of flips that whole what's happening on its head, which in a very clever Black comedy, very provocative way. So it was fun to shoot. Yeah. So it's like, you just got to keep getting creative. We've done parking lot concerts. We've done, got to keep being creative, right?
That's right. And that's one thing it has taught us. It's taught us, the pandemic's taught us a lot of things. And post-pandemic, I think we're going to use a lot of that as well, too. Businesses have had to adapt. And as people in the entertainment industry like yourselves have had to adapt. And it can still be a benefit after the fact, too.
Well, and that's absolutely. And I think, having worked on a lot of all different budget sizes of films and TV shows, and same thing with all different budget sizes and shapes and sizes of theaters, like, it's not bad for us to have, to clean up a little bit. We got a little dirty, what I mean? Like, it's good, like, man, remember when we used, because that was when the pandemic was coming down. I was shooting this low budget indie film in Oklahoma, and I was like, everybody was trying to be aware of it. And I was like, oh my God, like 20 people have touched my body today, between costume, makeup, and mics and camera people getting close to me. You're like, oh my God. And that's not, so there's some good things that come out of it. Plus just accessibility. Like, it's nice that I'm able to see you to your face. Whereas like you're in Canada and I'm in Texas. So Like, I think that there's cool things that make it possible for people who may not be able to go to the theater or may not be able to go to the movie theater or whatever, where it's like, no, you can still, if you want to see a play, you can see a play. If you want to see the movie when it's released, like, my hope is that, you know, at some point, you know, things like that will continue. I know people got to make money, but
of course,
find a way to monetize it, you know, because there are people that need that access, and it shouldn't be, you know, exclusive to people like of certain circumstance or whatever. So
I agree.
I don't know.
And if you look at too, I mean, we look back at social media, you know, back in the days of, you know, of, well, when Facebook and MySpace and things like that are starting to become connected and popular, you know, people are connecting all around the internet, and, you know, families across the world will be able to reach out and see what they're doing for breakfast and communicate with photos and things like that. But the pandemic has even taken that to a step further, where a lot of people that were afraid to embrace technology like that are now almost forced to, if they want to see their families and loved ones around the world, you either hop on these Zoom calls or Skype calls or, you know, FaceTime or whatever, or concerts, artists, or, you know, or in plays, like you just mentioned as well too. So it's forced us into something maybe some of us aren't as comfortable with, and can be a blessing if you think of it, right? It's made people now comfortable with technology, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, yeah, I know we're all tired of Zoom and we're all tired of doing things like that, but I think that I do think it's important to try to take some of these things forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, come on.
I know.
It's good to have, you know, like, I'm thinking about like wearing the mask, and yeah, sure, it's a pain and whatever. And I'm like, but I didn't have bronchitis once.
Yes.
Or flu. Like, and I always have bronchitis at least once a season, you know, and I had no flu or bronchitis or anything. And you're just like, these masks, perhaps they work. I don't know.
Think of that in a bright side. I've never really thought about that, but yes, that's a huge plus.
You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Like, normally you have a cold, or normally you have whatever, you know, whatever's going around. Like, I had none of that.
Yeah. I was listening to a local radio station here. It's a 101.1 FM, WRAF in Detroit, one of the longest running rock radio stations that's close to us. And I heard them talking on their morning talk show the other day, and they were saying how one of the things, you know, that's changed a lot during the pandemic is people calling in sick, because everyone's working from home. And I thought about that. And, you know, people, you know, they could just say they're not feeling well. But I mean, the funny thing is, people don't want to call in sick now because I'm sick, right? Oh, you got COVID? You got to go get a test. So, like, whether you're playing hooky or you're for real, I think that is kind of making people not call in sick, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah. One, two, like, working from home, that's the thing I hate, is like, all of a sudden you're like, I have just the weirdest hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, you look up and you're like, it's 10 at night. Why am I still working on this? And you're like, oh, because you started at a weird time because you slept strange. And like, time is like a flat line. Like, I don't know what day it is sometimes. So
I know. Yeah.
That's the only thing, is that you just got to be more vigilant about like, and work is over, like closing it down or whatever. Cause it's hard to bring, you know, the end to your day sometimes because it's sitting right there.
I know. And I work from home pre-pandemic, and I'll be working from home post-pandemic. And so I know what that's like. Yeah. Two questions I missed, and then we're going to jump over to the last audio question from Kathy Latest, but I missed a couple here. This one is from Craig Crow. And I hope, I know I pronounced that name wrong possibly, but from Craig Crow, were you excited when you learned that we would see more backstory of your character in the spinoff?
Oh my God, yes. Oh yes. And like, I didn't know, like, and I don't think they really, you know, the impression I got from Peter is like, they weren't sure how much they would continue my story, you know? Like, I really didn't know I'd have that many episodes. I thought, oh, it'll just be one. And then but luckily I was able to be available, you know, like I was able to do it. Like, I'm also running a theater too. Hell yeah, I was so excited. It's you know, and it's really different, like, to have that experience where you know, I have a lot, like, if you guys look at my history, like, a lot of times it's like, come in, do a couple of days, or come in and do some spread out like scenes over a couple of weeks or whatever. So to actually be like, oh, you're in back to back episodes, it was a different thing, and just how you get to know the rhythm of the set and the crew, and it was just lovely because I got to know people even better, you know, through the course of it. So
yeah, and playing two.
That was nice. Like, I really felt like, oh, like putting on the clothes, and you're like, oh, I see where we're going with this colors. You know, like, I know we're gonna do my hair like this today. I love it, or whatever. You know, like getting, you know, being really an active part of that community was really cool.
And almost like playing two different people, because, you know, they're so different, you know, so bubbly in Better Call Saul before she has to spend the lifetime with Jimmy and then Walter White, you know, yeah, right. Just crazy, right?
Right. And it was, I mean, yeah. So I'm hopeful that I get to be at the DMV if I get to come back, because isn't that where he finds me?
Yes. Well, who
All
knows?
dreams go to die.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
A question from VZ McCoy says, the last we saw Francesca, she was headed back to work at the MVD. From that to shredding, bribing Walt, your thoughts and what made her break bad?
I think it's just, I don't know. I probably just all the things she's asked to do and all the things that all the secrets she's been asked to keep. I think she comes to realize her value.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a Dumbo. So I feel like, she's pretty smart. And so once, like even we saw that when she makes that call to Hank when they're trapped inside that RV,
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who voices like, oh, your wife's in the hospital and all this. And it's like more money. Like, it's just like, cool, we'll do this, but you're going to pay me more money. And like, oh, and now you're going to give me a clothing allowance. And now you're paying for my apartment. Like she's very much like, it's cool. I'll do whatever. Here's the dollars that coordinate with this. It's all business, Yeah. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like at this point she just has to kind of cut off emotionally from the stuff. Otherwise, it's too much. So
I agree.
It's just like, just pay me more money and I'll do whatever. Like, and I think she is rock solid. Like we'll see. Watch, they'll have me be Flip and go witness, Flip as a witness. But like, I don't think she would. Like, I feel like she'll go down. She'll be paid well and she'll have a good, be able to provide for whoever she wants to in her, trajectory.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll finally get to go on her vacations of the magazine. Cause that's what I love about the magazines. I get to look at, I'm always marking like the trip to here.
Okay.
And this golden turtle bracelet. And, like, that's what I'm always like. It's funny. The magazine, I think it's cause you have to get clearance on what you're using, but there always seem to be like travel and this, and I'm sure they're specifically chosen, but I just like to imagine like, she's like, and this is where I'll be going for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Without fit, like this is what's going to happen,
and being weighted on hand and foot.
Oh, yeah, it's all inclusive, baby. Like, and so wherever she's going with after she shreds all the stuff and gets her money from Walt, it's like, I'll be my own beliefs, probably not, but I would like to say Tahiti. That's probably she'll live one of those places with the things over the water.
I could see Francesca having some drinks on a lounge and someone working on her feet and a big umbrella. Yeah, totally pampered.
Oh yeah. It's all funny. I mean, I really do think it's just that's what it's become for them.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be a perfect segue. We're going to go into our last audio question from our YouTube members. And for people that are watching right now, if you'd like to send in audio questions, you can hit that join button down below and you become a member of our channel. And you can send in your audio voicemail questions. We'll play them for our guests each week as well, too. So this one is from Kathy Latest. And I believe I usually don't get a chance to listen to these questions until the day of the show. And I prepare them, get them all the audio levels and set. And I think this one is dealing with that scene where there's shredding going on, the infamous scene there. So let's have a listen to Kathy's, and I'm almost positive that's what that one is entailing. Let's have a listen.
Hi, Tina. This is Kathy. In the Breaking Bad episode Face Off, could you please let us know what that paperwork you were feeding the shredder was truly all about? I've heard a few things on what it was, but I'd like to know officially from you. Thank you.
To be honest, I didn't even look at the papers. It was all a bunch of numbers and legal, like it was like, because they just get a bunch of like, it looked like medical files.
Okay.
Like, but because they never really zoomed in on the papers, like it just, they like the idea of like what the papers look like.
Okay.
And like really dense to where you couldn't really read them. So I was just putting it all, like it all just needed to go. And in my mind, it's all like financial transactions, offshore accounts, people's business. Like in my mind, that's what I was shredding, was like, and this client, we're going to put them in the shredder because if any of this stuff comes off where he's done some dealings with offshore or, things for people's divorce or whatever, like, and I'm sure he's done all of it, or payments to certain people. I kind of thought that's what we were shredding, anything that could implicate him or me or anybody in any kind of funky stuff.
Exactly.
But the papers themselves were, I want to say, were like, they looked, my memory of them is like they were kind of medical, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Weird, like it's a lease. Like that's how dense the type was. And it was so light that like the fans couldn't really zoom in and see what was on it.
They do that, don't they? Yeah. They can solve some things.
They know. That's why I said the thing about the numbers in the websites, like that's why they buy them. That's why, like, they know that somebody's going to spend time and zoom in. So if they don't want you to see it, they will use something that will not, not be a clue.
Yeah, it's hilarious how attentive the fans are. I mean, people think I know so much about the show because I run a podcast talking about it. I really don't. I learn from you guys, the actors and the cast and crew. I learn a lot from the people in our live chats and things like that. So it's just fun to learn some of this folklore and mystique that's out there, right?
Right. And like, I just thought of, like, you're talking about memorable scenes, like in Saul universe. I just remember there was that long scene where Kim and I were putting together those notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
We had this sequence of papers, and like Kim is Ray is, we're trying to figure out the continuity of the shots. And like, we're just like, what notebook are we on? Like, it was so stressful. Like when that episode aired, she and I texted, and we're like, oh my God, do you remember the notebook? Like trying to put together, like, what page am I on? No, you started here and you need to go this way. And so it was a running like comedy text of like, what page? You're in the middle of that notebook, and this space and this. So she goes, all I remember is just being stressed out about the fucking notebooks. And I was like, yes, that's all I remember as well.
Well, it's cool that you shared with us earlier tonight the fact, so we talked about the shredding of the documents, but it's cool to know about that business card being a blank business card. And I mean, it could have been anything on there. It could have been a number for a plumber. It could have been, someone says got a business card, but that's how good they are. And that cleared up a lot of mystique for myself, and I'll talk to Tom Schnauz and ask him about some of the documents in the shredder, see if he remembers what they were.
Because my memory of them is that they just looked like
medical,
not like a lease, numbers, but don't make any sense, like no names or anything that you would know.
Yeah.
And I do remember that because they were real specific about how I held the business card, but like that you couldn't see any side of it. But I don't remember anything being on it.
Yeah. That's cool. It's good to know.
Like, just react this way. And I was like, okay, like you're like, I'm going with it. Okay, whatever you want.
The most surprised, being the most surprised looking at a blank business card you probably ever will in your life, right?
Exactly. You're like, what is this business card?
That's right. Yeah, that's great. Well,
that's what they,
Exactly. Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, I just want to check with you as well too. Do you have anything coming up down the line that you'd like to share with us? Anything in pre-production, post-production, or anything that you're planning on working on?
Well, I just did something, but I can't really talk about it.
Okay.
But I have a Blink and Miss Me. I have 2 lines in Minari, which is nominated for Oscars right now. And you can look for me in the church scene. I literally have 2 lines. But that movie is like, how we were talking about story and special projects.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew, even though I had 2 lines, I knew on that set when I got on there and when I read the script that this was a special script. And just, again, same thing with that show, like the attention to detail. And also, like, they shot it outside of Tulsa, and the diversity that they had on the production team, because I've worked a number of times in Oklahoma and I love it and the people are lovely, but it's not necessarily the most diverse crew.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I don't know, like they were able to, to bring in all different people of color and different heads of departments. And it was just refreshing. Like, I was like, this is amazing. So kudos to A24 for making that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it just was like that script and those actors, it was just, so I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, you'll see me for 2 lines, but
hey,
who cares?
Yeah.
But that movie is great. Like, it's worth your time. It's worth your investment in the Prime to stream it or whatever. It's a really cool, I'm so excited to be in that. And I have a medium-sized part in a kind of a horror Western where I get to actually be part of the cowgirl gang, part of a cowgirl in the gang of cowboys who are robbers called The Pale Door. That came out during the pandemic, I think around in the fall. And that, it's a lot of fun. Low budget Western horror. I get to ride a horse. I got to shoot guns. I had the biggest guns. Cast me as a sassy lady. Why? I don't know. What's happening?
Nothing more sassy than big guns on a horse, for sure.
Yeah, right. So it was her name's Brenda.
That works.
I had a great hat, so I really wish I'd taken that hat. So those are the last couple of things for me, and then I just shot something else, but I can't really talk about it. So.
No problem.
But something else cool coming out soon.
Good. Well, let's hope, fingers crossed, that we might see Francesca in season 6, and then maybe in late 2021 we'll get you back.
Everybody wants to do right by the fans, so you're definitely part. Everybody wants to do right by the fans, so you're definitely part